I've been working in this kind of media for quite a long time. My work involves a lot of our sort of intersection between our contemporary life and industrialization, and what that really means in its fullest ramifications, the human costs, the environmental costs, our own sort of emotional costs of being sort of tied to this world. I guess my interest in this kind of thing goes way back to when I was a kid. One of my grandfathers was a mechanic in a steel mill up in East Liverpool, Ohio. And so going up to visit, we would drive up the Ohio River there, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever driven up the Ohio River on the eastern side there, but it's just mile after mile of steel mill and ceramic, old kilns from the ceramic processes. And so this is the kind of thing that I became really fascinated with as a kid, with these old industrial buildings. And I began to sort of, in my teenage years and college and stuff like this, troll old industrial sites as they were becoming obsolete and people were tearing them down. And so there's this kind of love-hate relationship I have with these places, because I know that number one, they sustain my family. You know, my grandfather wouldn't have been able to put my father into college and wouldn't have been able to then therefore give me the life I had if he hadn't worked for the steel mill, and my other set of grandparents for the pottery industry. But I also know that these places have their costs. East Liverpool, Ohio, and many of these places suffer from industrial pollution that's going to have long-lasting effects on people and the environment. And certainly, but there's still, again, these kind of weird, fascinating things that happen in these places as they sort of deteriorate, go back to the earth, how nature comes in and retakes them. So there is this kind of hybrid animal plant thing going on, and even nowadays with our new chemicals, I mean, it's horrifically fascinating how, for instance, how mollusks are beginning to incorporate, you know, little bits of plastic from the polar fleece that's getting washed into the oceans now and building their shells with this stuff. And so you're getting these kind of now hybrid life forms even from our industrial waste. And so I'm really interested in sort of exploring what that means. And not only here, but I've also, over the years, been traveling abroad, especially to places, most recently to South Africa. And the consequences of this stuff might be disappearing in our country, but certainly it's now just being shifted to other places, Africa, China, places like this, where our industrial remains are taken off and they're recycled by small children and in polluting circumstances, or manufactured in these big giant factories where, you know, people sleep in little just cubicles of rooms. So, but you know, it is our world, and it is, you know, I like a new pair of shoes as well as the rest of the next guy. So, you know, it is this kind of love-hate relationship that I think that sort of starts out art historically in my mind with the work of Andy Warhol, but I try to move it into a different place with my work. And so my work involves a lot of different inspirations. For instance, this work over here comes from an inspiration from a type of plant that you find down in southern Africa. It's a plant called a lithops. They're meaning sort of stone plants. So there's little stubby plants that grow out of the earth, just in these kinds of small little forms, and on the top of them they have these windows to let the light in, and this is where they create photosynthesis. But here, instead of course, using the actual forms, I've transformed them into cement objects. And I use the antifreeze as kind of that love-hate kind of substance. I've been wanting to do this for a while, begin to incorporate liquids into my work. It's kind of a new area that I've been trying to figure out how to work with. You know, I've also been involved in installation, doing things like you see here with this work, Innervate, working with the idea of things moving back and forth, especially unseen things. And that's open really to interpretation. Whatever is getting moved back and forth, you can imagine anything from water to waste to you know, even pneumatic tubes with information. But working with the newer construction materials, I'm also trying to sort of, I guess, bring it into people's here and now. I like the old and the rusty, but I also want to make sure that people understand that this isn't just something of the past, that it's something that's sort of part of our world, but is oftentimes hidden. And again, things like all of the ductwork and things like this that go on within a building or a place are often hidden away. And I'm trying to sort of like symbolically strip that away and make it more, I guess, visceral or anyway, forgot the word I was looking for. But it's that kind of thing that I'm looking for. This kind of sort of hybrid between the living and the industrial, this kind of weird place that we are, and this play between, again, that kind of idea of toxicity but desire is a lot of what my work is about. I don't know how much more you want me to say. Are you interested in me walking around doing individual pieces?
We could open it up for questions.
I
know I have a question for you.
Okay.
So you use mason glazes to color most of your sculptures. That's
They're
right.
mason stains right now, which are compounds that I get them from Columbus clay. I actually started out my artistic career as a potter, so I still have a really strong tie to, I guess, that medium. And cement really is a ceramic media. As one old pottery guy North told me, "Oh, you have mud in your blood," when I was talking to him once, because my line of potters goes way back to the 1800s in Stoke-on-Trent. Yeah, but anyway, these are powdered glazes that I apply. They're raw pigments, oftentimes, and then I suspend them in water and sort of apply them with a dry brush, and then seal them under layers of spray paint, things like that. So, but I'm working on some new coloration, so using some tar and crayons and some different materials. So that'll be for me next year.
I'm curious. The colors, I can either see them as being like bright and cheery, or as being like lurid, like too bright and like a little bit discomforting. So I'm curious how you see them yourself.
I mean, well, the way I determine the color is that after I cast the forms, I don't imagine the colors before I do the forms. I sort of work with the idea of form first, is sort of where my mind goes. And I usually start with the metal first, and then think about how, I play with the metal and thinking about how I want it to, you know, express itself, what it says to me. And then I do the forms and cast them. And then after they're cast, I kind of, sort of, this sounds strange, but I imagine their personalities and what their personalities say to me. I guess I'm kind of keyed into some of the theories of like people like Kandinsky or Van Gogh, where you sort of hear, you have certain kind of connections between colors and sounds, or colors and tastes and things like this. And I kind of work with those, you know, it's nothing formal. It's more that kind of collective unconscious that I'm hoping that I'm working with mine in terms of the color. So some of them, you know, seem more subdued and lulling, like the green one there, and then others, yeah, are more sharp and more, I guess, you know, high-pitched, shrieking kind of things. Yeah. But it all sort of like depends to me on their personalities. I mean, if you come over to my studio and see them all like in a room, it's really, people like, oh, it's like little creatures crawling everywhere. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly the way I feel about them. So.
What first led you from clay to cement?
Well, I started doing ceramics. I have an undergraduate degree in biology, and I started doing ceramics in college as kind of a, one of those enrichment classes, I guess if you can call them. Then I came to work here in Columbus, Ohio, and I thought, well, in my spare time, I'm gonna find something to do. So I signed up for independent study classes at Ohio State in the ceramics department. Just, like I enjoyed doing this, so I'm going to continue doing this at night. And, that's where everything went wrong. I started showing art, and anyway, we won't go there. But basically, I ran out of the possible independent study credits I could possibly take at the university, and so I lost my access. I liked to work with high fire reduction kilns, which are big gas, real beasts of machines. And so I lost my access to that, so I had to figure out a way of doing my work without access to a kiln. So I switched to cement.
Okay. A little bit ago, you were talking about how your art has like personalities and things like that. And me being a musician, I kind of feel the same way. Every key of every song says something different to me. And this piece being my favorite one, I would ask, what did this one kind of say to you while you were making it?
Well, I mean, it's, I was thinking about, like with the title, Innovation, it seems to me, sort of sharp and energetic and but also somewhat disconcerting, I guess, this whole sort of sharp edge to it. I guess, its personality is kind of a little angry, a little sharp, a little, but excitable, I guess. But I was looking for a way to, I started doing installation about 7 years ago. When I got an opportunity to work, my first opportunity to work on a big scale. And so when I do an installation like this, I come in and I look at the space and I think about how things specifically work in the space. Obviously it has to be sited. I can't take this and move it anywhere else at this point. It has to work within the space. So I look at, technically, or I guess aesthetically, I look at how to engage the space in an active way without repeating forms, creating some kind of I like art that's open-ended, because I think that if I tell you everything, you're gonna walk away and have nothing to chew on or think about yourself. And so I like to leave it a little open-ended. So. Because I don't have all the answers either. So.
I would just like to say this installation is the first time that the pipes in our space have ever made sense. That above the gallery, we have several apartments. There are at least 20 apartments. And whenever someone's using a sink or flushing a toilet, you hear water flowing through the gallery.
Well, that actually worked out perfectly because I had about a year ago proposed sort of a version of this for the project space over at CCAD. And my idea was that I was going to put little speakers in the tubing, and there's these sounds of drip, 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 or flushing water, running water that I was going to use in there. So now I don't have to do it. It worked out perfectly.
Any other questions or comments for Carol? All right. Well, thank you so much.